Good morning, Josh. Thanks for stopping by the booth this morning. We have this is your last day here at the Harrisburg Show.
It is.
It's the hump day for us. But now we're really excited to catch up here. We were just talking. Here. All the different states you hunted this past year, and want to hear a recap. Want to hear some things you're going to do different. But before we get into all that, why don't you introduce yourself for anyone that hasn't come across your YouTube channel or podcast?
I'm Josh Teulker from Before the Echo. You guys might know me from the Hunting Beast too. I was on there for a handful of years with Dan Infault.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where are you from?
Oh, sorry. I'm from Southern Indiana. Yep, and I hunt all over the place.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we were chatting a little bit yesterday and today, and Chad, I'm gonna give you the
I got the
baton.
Okay,
officially giving the baton over, but I can't help this though.
What?
but this is the theme that we were talking about last night. You just mentioned talking about a new hunter that people sometimes overcomplicate things.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about this on the way to dinner last night, and I felt like that the evolution of whitetail content has changed, and maybe we have greatly overcomplicated things, and people have to make things sound harder than what it is.
Yeah.
And we need to probably just reset. Do
Yeah.
you agree or disagree?
No, there's probably something to be said there. That's probably worth saying. We were just last night. We were talking on a podcast about we had a new hunter there, like you said, and he was learning. And I got to thinking about how much I've learned just from all the content that's out there now, and the way there's 100 different guys on podcasts that really know what they're doing, and they all have a little bit different. And then like guys that are learning, like I'm always learning. Like I'm far from the top of the chain of a deer hunter. But you think about like, Andy May said this, Dan Infault said this, Andre said this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like you get up there and you're like, you feel like maybe you don't trust your instincts, or you start second guessing what you're doing because, like what would Dan do here? And It's like, well, just do what you think's right,
That's right. I was actually last night. I consumed a couple of your shorts, or a couple of the recent videos you've done in the last 2 months maybe, and I thought it was really interesting. Like we both got to hunt with Dan. You've hunted with Dan a way longer duration in different habitats than what I have, but I thought it was interesting that we've both had similar takeaways, as in like knowing when to slow down.
Yeah.
Talk on that and like how that's impacted like your scouting and how you're setting up.
So like
hunts.
in the past and even now, I'm super impatient sometimes. I get in a hurry and then miss things. And like Dan, hunting with him, I mean, he starts from the time that truck door opens thinking about things and examining the parking lot. And, he sees stuff in the parking lot like, there's signs of, someone's been here, or, this road, nobody goes down it, and, we could park over there and go in a different way. And he just is constantly, from the time he steps foot on the parking lot of a piece of public to going in, he's taking this time and just not over analyzing everything, but just noticing everything around him. Whereas like a lot of times I'm like on a map and okay, I'm getting there, and it's just like blinders until I get where I think I need to be.
Right.
And we probably should slow down a little bit,
So has that impacted your hunting? Like, and you've traveled a bunch too.
Yeah.
I want to get to that after we get like past this little education type content or keep things simple. How's that impacted your season? Like in 2023, how did that impact your season?
One thing that I tried to do a little bit better this season is do a little more observations and just slow down in that manner and watch deer and make sure that I'm going in at the right time, on the right winds, and the correct path in, access and stuff. That's I think where I would oftentimes speed up too much. It was like I had to be hunting, let's go, and like today let's just kind of watch trail cameras, maybe go glass somewhere, and before I was just gung ho all the time.
When you were doing that, did you feel like I'm missing out?
It definitely.
Like,
well,
I need to be out there.
Two guys that I've become very good friends with now, Joe Miles, and that guy, like, he does not do anything until it's the right time. I mean, like we were talking about, he went to Kentucky this year and killed a nice deer, but he went down there early season, and what he did was he went down there 2 days early, and he just glassed the few bean fields that he had access to. Nothing showed up. Went home. He's like, I'm not wasting my time here, And most hunters would have just gone and sat around and
For 5 days or
yeah,
however long they had.
and then runt the spot for the rut or whatever, whenever the deer are going to show up there. And then the other guy's Andy Mann. He's probably the king of being persistent and patient and moving in at the right time. So I try to keep those two guys in the back of my mind whenever I get into my, let's go hunting stage.
Well, the other part of it too is like when we'll kind of shift this into the out-of-state stuff, because how many states did you hunt in 23?
Yeah, I think I hunted 5.
5 states. So a lot of times, family guy, have a lot of other stuff going on at home, and you only have a window to go get it done. And from my experience, is like when you block yourself into a 7-day trip or a 5-day trip, like you're get in the habit. I know me personally, I shouldn't speak for you, but I get in the habit of forcing things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to make this happen. There's 3 days left. I need to go harder. So how does, going on a 4, 5, 7-day trip, how does that come in with like trying to wait and make things right?
Yeah, you have to get it. Well, it's our mindset. Like we have the mindset you're talking about, and like those in reality, getting in that mindset where like I got to go make something happen. That's making it not happen sometimes, And I think you have to just kind of flop around, thinking like I have to be patient here and find a deer that I've saw from the truck glassing or something out west, or I don't whatever the case may be, and I can't afford not to do that, because it's not going to. If I just bust through here and hunt willy nilly, I'm not going to get anything for 5 days because I'm blowing everything up. Mm-hmm. Now I think once you've acquired a target or found one of those deer, then that's time to be aggressive and you know what you're doing. But sometimes it works out the way you're talking, like all this stuff we make up like for deer, they all don't follow the rules sometimes. But that's just something I definitely did a little bit better job of this year. I still need to do better, but
Here's the question for both of you. Get east of the Mississippi, where you can't glass really far, and you can't do some of that. What are you supposed to do to hunt smart and efficient and also get intel without applying pressure?
Yeah, it's definitely tougher. I mean, it's not really a secret that out west it's a little bit easier whitetail hunting. I think it's mostly because of that reason. You can see, make moves, and deer are more visible. In the east, man, I rely on cameras a lot to tell me like what deer are in the areas I want to hunt. And that's the thing is whenever you're out of states, sometimes you don't know that. So like if you can get to some of those states right now, and I put out cameras right now and just let them soak all summer and hope that a limb or something doesn't come into them. And that's I rely on that to at least get me in the area where a big deer is, and not necessarily just hunting a spot that there's no targets.
The biggest thing is just knowing that there's something in the vicinity that you can try to make a play.
Yep. And then just like when you're out of state, there's so many resources now online. I mean, find a local that's willing to help out a little bit and get you at least in the right area of a big deer.
I still think glass is overlooked a little bit in the east. I know for me, like growing up hunting ag, glassing deer, it wasn't a thing when I was a kid growing up because we gun hunted, first generation bow hunter, whatever. Like no one talked about it. I wasn't reading about that in magazines. I wasn't reading about that in forums, so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then the big woods thing, it does make it tough.
Yeah,
It
or
makes it very
marsh
difficult.
or something.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I had in my mind, like going to Ohio and hunting, like in some of the big public land around there. It'd be hard to.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the opportunities around clear cuts and whatnot.
Yeah.
But just coming back, I guess, full circle, going back to ag ground, and you've been over my place.
Yeah.
It's like it's not big ag, but there's enough there that you can drive some of those back roads, especially in the summer, early fall. Like you can locate bucks.
Yeah, I shot a deer in Wisconsin on a river bottom, and how we found the deer was we were driving home from a hunt, and the deer were in front of us on the road. You know.
Right.
So, yeah, there's ways to find them. Something else is, I mean, it's tough to do because you want to sleep and all that, but man, driving around at night, you could, the deer are moving at night, and you could, locate something driving around at night.
Yeah.
Now you got to make sure, like if you're going to be shining or something, you got to make sure that's legal because most everywhere during season there's some kind of a regulation on that. But yeah, that one just ran in front of us on the road.
Did you kill that deer?
Yeah.
All right, well, walk us through the
Yeah,
story.
that's on the Beast a couple years ago. We were in Wisconsin hunting, and me and Dan got done hunting. I don't know, however long it took us to get back to the truck and drive around the block is how far after dark it was, maybe an hour or so. And yeah, a really nice 8-pointer with little kickers off of its G2s was out in front of us, and it was in the, like, there was a piece of public river bottoms on our left, and on the right was a big cornfield, and the deer was only like 10 yards into the, ran it was on the road, didn't run across the road, and it kind of was just mingling around there in the cornfield. And Dan just kind of blew it off, and he'll tell you he did. He's like, yeah. He kind of assumed it came from the private crops and woods back in there. And midday the next day, I'm like, I'm going to go and see where that buck came from. I said, there's some public pretty close to that. And I dropped down into the river bottom that was public. And as soon as I was probably from here to, maybe 100 yards from my truck. And there was a really nice rub that was, waist high on a tree. I'm like, oh man, he may be traveling through here. And I got on my map and kind of found a bend in the river that made an oxbow. And then there was a house up on top of this hill where I didn't think a deer would want to go up by that house. I'm like, man, that oxbow makes a pinch right there. If that deer is in here, he'll.
And real quick, what is an oxbow? For someone's listening to this, like,
it's just it's like if you can imagine a river, running. It's just where it kind of takes a turn and then turns back on itself.
Yeah, a tight U.
Yeah, like a horseshoe.
Yep.
In the river.
Yep.
And there was no trees. Like it was like a marshy river bottom, no trees at all. And I found one little tree that I was probably 7 or 8 feet off the ground. And he came right around that little pinch to go into that oxbow. This was like maybe October 19th or something like that when I shot that deer. So starting to be, possible rut activity a little bit. And
what about
that's how that worked.
Rub height? I know that's something that Dan talks about. But I also, there's some farms where I know that and pieces of ground where there's definitely mature deer and there's not high rubs, and they're just lower. And so, what's your opinion on that? Because I think a lot of people think like, it's a high rub. It's a good indication, right? But
sure,
is it an end all be all?
Yeah, not for me. I mean, I hear like I scout with people a decent amount or some buddies, and there'll be a little bitty sapling that'll be like bent over and broken. They're like, there's no, a big buck had to do that. I'm like, dude, these are freaking wild 200-pound or not,
180.
Yeah, well, even a little dink buck is a wild animal that's probably 10 times stronger than we are. I'm like, that freaking spike could have broken that tree. Like,
yeah,
I think at least.
Yeah.
And then, but I mean, there's definitely something to the height of the rub. Dan always talks about, the mass of the tree is not as important as how high up it is. But
one of the things I picked up on with Dan is relating that visual sign back to tracks as well. Not only in scrapes but also in rubs. If you can, whether it's a signpost rub, whether it's a rub line, whatever kind of sign that you're finding, trying to correlate a track or some kind of imprint on the ground in relation to that. Because I think that this is me regurgitating some of this, okay? But like those high rubs with close tracks would indicate a bigger deer, or a lower rub with tracks that are
further back
would indicate a deer being further back.
See, I've never heard him say that. That's a good tip.
That's not from Dan. But
okay.
That's just, I've heard other guys talk about that. And I was like, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd say 9 out of 10 people probably just look at the rub.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe 90 out of or 99 out of 100 in reality.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Tracks are hard to beat, like finding a good set of tracks somewhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, typically if you've, like Jake was saying, I don't know, I'm with you there. Like sometimes, especially in Indiana, we don't have a lot of rubbing, and we have a decent amount, but I don't know, we don't have as many bucks as like Wisconsin does, or Michigan, some of those really deer dense areas. So, but a big track is a big deer usually.
This is something I picked up on, not big woods, but bigger tracts of timber. It seems like there's less rubs, or maybe they're harder to find. And then you find a piece like in Kansas or something where everything is more constricted and everything just feels like it's tore up. And then when you walk a timber piece, you're like, oh, there's really not much sign. But in reality, all these other pieces funnel this traffic on this edge, and there's so much sign versus like, well, there's a rub. You walk another ridge, there's a rub, and it's not as clear.
I would agree with that 100%. I don't know if that's a deer density thing or if that's
Could be,
the multitude or magnitude of habitat thing. I would say it's probably from my perspective, it's a deer density thing, like with less competition, less marking. But I don't know. I think that we try to shoebox too much stuff too, because when we were in some big wood pieces with Dan, like he got into a specific area that we believe one deer was laying down sign, and there was a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was correlated to bed to food from what we thought was one deer. Mm-hmm. And there was there was a lot of sign. Yeah, tore up. So I don't.
Yeah.
Was it still pretty open, or was it like a tree fell down and there was new growth popping up along a point or something?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
It was pretty diverse. So long draw, hill country, long draw, and pretty decent infrastructure as far as like. I'm trying not to talk about it like too much because it's pretty easy to find on a map. But a little bit of infrastructure with a trail system, private ag down on the bottom. Going back off that draw, just like several points and some bigger drainages coming up, blowdowns. So the habitat was kind of fairly diverse, from hardwoods, poplar, and even some pines in that scenario. But yeah.
So let's say someone's listening to this. It's kind of application season. People, you're talking around here like, what's your plans for this upcoming season? And a guy, he lives east of the Mississippi, and he's like, I want to go somewhere. And let's say he's in Pennsylvania. Let's say he's in Michigan. What would you tell that person for planning their first out-of-state whitetail hunt? Is there a punch list? Is there a checklist? Is there a place you'd suggest? Whether that's just a place to dip your toe, it's an easy tag to get. What would you?
There's a handful of states you could go to and have about the same experience, I think the biggest thing is it's not a secret. Like, you can buy a tag over the counter and in Illinois, in Ohio. I think the most important thing is pick a spot out. And I would probably, and if you're planning a 7-day hunt over there, maybe just take a day off that and take a long weekend and go out there right now and figure it out before you go. I think anywhere in the Midwest is good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have you could have a horrible hunt, but you got a good chance of having a good hunt. And then I think people have this perception of, I'm gonna go out of state and everything's gonna be better than my state. And no, it's hard everywhere if you're hunting public land, and it's really hard to knock on doors and get permission. It's not impossible still. I mean, we did it in Kansas this year, but I think setting some realistic expectations, especially if it's your first time, you just go out there and have the mentality like, I'm going to learn as much as I can here, and if I get a deer, great. If not, that's okay too, and going into that mentality. Because if you think I'm going to go to Illinois, or I'm going to go to Ohio, and I'm going to shoot one of these deer I'm seeing on Instagram, you're going to be disappointed and frustrated.
So why are you traveling to all these different states? Like, what is it personally that you're?
I just love to deer hunt, man.
Just more opportunity.
Yeah, and it's the adventure of it, and I really enjoy deer hunting alone too. That's something that is like, it's like my thing, and I like going I've been to Colorado by myself elk hunting and staying in the mountains by myself, so I enjoy that part of it, just the solitude thing and doing my own thing. But I don't know. I just like going deer hunting, man. In Indiana, you only kill one, so you kill one fast. It's like, dang it,
You don't want to wait.
Yeah,
wait until the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd love to hunt every state that has whitetails. I mean, that's something I'd love to do.
Is that
one
like
day.
a personal goal?
Yeah. I have a friend that's killed something in every 47 of the 50 states.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. He has a lot of stories, a lot of experiences, met a lot of people.
So outside of your home state of Indiana, if you could, out of the states, I guess let me back up. How many states have you hunted thus far? If you're chasing that.
Probably 15 or so.
which has been your favorite? Which has been your?
I mean, Kansas was definitely my favorite state to whitetail hunt.
Yeah. Because of the visual aspect.
Yeah.
Of like just the openness and being able to acquire deer.
The amount of big deer over there.
Come on.
I mean, I don't want. I know. Quit asking me these questions about hunting. Where should I go hunting at? But no, that was my. That was my favorite state. And I'm going to Iowa this year. I'll probably love that too. You know.
Yeah.
But like, were you going to ask me which one I don't like?
Yeah.
Kentucky. I don't like going to Kentucky.
Why is that?
Because I go in September and I get ticks all over me and it's 100
hot.
degrees.
Yeah.
Kentucky public land, it gets a lot of pressure. So, but no, Kentucky's a good place to go to. It's just my hate relationship with it. So yeah.
So, but you've done well in Kentucky. Historically, right?
No, I used to hunt with a trad bow and I've killed some little dinks down there, but never a nice one. I'm probably gonna, and then I got, I haven't been there in a few years, and I live 45 minutes from Kentucky, but I think I'm going to go back down there this year and here in the next couple months and scout and try to kill something this year down there. But
how imperative is it to go off-season scout for an out-of-state trip? Like you mentioned, that was the number one piece of advice for someone to plan something. Is that almost, besides getting the tag, like is that step one for you?
Yeah, if you can get out there and do it, I think it's well worth your time to go out there. I mean, especially like. Man, you can pick a spot at, like if you're just sitting at home and I'm going to go to Illinois this year, you pick a spot on a map and you get out there and you've never been there. I mean, it can be trash. And then all of a sudden you're wasting time and you're wasting.
You're not wasting days of the season at that point.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, at least you can get out there and have a starting point.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
We've made that mistake. So a handful of years ago, Clint and I decided we were going to hunt Missouri, and we e-scouted, right? And we get on forums, you do a little bit of digital research, you drop pins on whatever kind of mapping tool that you're using, mapping application. And again, tried to pigeonhole yourself into a 7-day trip. And it took us day 5. And we went from one side of the state, I can't remember how many miles we put on, but it was like, hunt this piece of public. No, it's not any good. Let's move to the next piece. You go to the next piece. Maybe something, take a day, go to the next piece. So now you're 3 days in the trip, and then it's like, okay, we're going to go to the bigger chunk that we can find on the map because we feel like mathematically you'd have a better opportunity. And, like, you get in the habit of we're stuck here. There's only 4 days left. Let's try to force something. And then by day 5, you're like, this isn't working, man. There's too many people. Let's move again. You finally find a piece, finally get on deer, and it's like you got 24 hours. You got 1 day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like an end-all, be-all. If you can't get out there, it's fine. But if you can't get out there, man, I would do everything you can to just lay eyes on a deer. Like most of the deer I've killed out of state, I've seen them the day before or the morning of or something. I've seen them. And like if you're just kind of willy-nilly hunting like we were just talking about earlier, it's like, man, you're spinning your wheels a little bit. Walk around and bump one or drive around, find one, or just do something to where you're like, okay, there he is. Even if you bump one, like he went this direction, he has to be, look on your map, he has to be, maybe there's something a half mile over here. Maybe he went to that bedding. At least there's something in the area, and he's on his feet, So that's what I would say. If you're going out of state and you haven't been able to go out and put trail cameras out or pre-scout, don't just be setting up and waiting around, I would try to get your eyes on something.
Even if you can't go now, like I know the postseason scouting thing is kind of big, but I really like doing the turkey thing too. Like, if you can if you can buy a license and it carries over to your season, like just pick up the turkey tag, go turkey hunt and like cover some ground, have a little bit of fun. And if you can only hunt till noon, like in a lot of states, then you have the rest of the day, and you're kind of killing. Not 2 birds with 1 stone, but
maybe 1.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 1 bird with 1 stone. I really like that approach too, and I get it. Like, it's not all about scouting then, and you're probably losing a lot of the visual advantage you have doing it now versus April or May.
Depends when you're going too. Like,
that's true.
If you're going to go out of state in September 1st somewhere, like maybe go in the summertime and figure out some beans, find some beans, or something that's going to be on a summer pattern because maybe still be on there.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty good point.
Yep.
So is that the approach you took in Kansas this year? Did you guys
Yeah, we
go
went
out
out there. We went out there during the summer. Actually, we didn't get out there in the spring or winter. But we kind of screwed up because we had had plans on hunting those government assisted properties. What do they call them? Weehaws. Well, it's come to find out, you actually aren't allowed to be on those unless it's hunting season.
Yeah, they have a lot of them have different dates.
Yeah,
for different,
so we just freaking went out there thinking we're going to be scouting all the time, and we couldn't go on them. And there was very little public land where we were at. So we probably knocked on, 30 farmers' doors. And, all of them were either it's leased or, we hunt or whatever the case was. But there was one, we got to this river bottom, and we were like, man, this is the best habitat we've seen all week there. And we were driving down the road, and those dirt roads in Kansas, and a farmer was on a side-by-side coming the other way, and he stopped us and was talking to us. And he had his little boy there, and they're shooting turtles in a pond. But anyway, he's like, yeah, we own, this chunk of land here. And I'm like, oh, would you let us hunt this fall? And he kind of was like, we got gun hunters coming. We have gun hunters coming all the time, but call me before you come, and maybe I'll let you. And that's the best lead we had the whole time. Like, it was a big waste of our time other than that. And sure enough, we called, and he gave us the thumbs up, and we got on his farm, so we ended up hunting there for the most part. And it was a really good hunt. So it was definitely worth driving out there.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of talk about Kansas right now, but it's just like anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's good parts of Ohio, there's bad parts of Ohio, there's pockets in Ohio, and I feel like it's the same damn thing in Kansas.
Yeah.
Like there are guys killing big deer in Kansas, but like you get into some of the public, dude, it's gonna be crowded. Like you're going in November, they're like there's gonna be pressure, especially if you're looking for timber.
Yeah. There's people hunting. Get over it.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
How was so you mentioned the habitat there in Kansas on that private parcel, river bottom type stuff.
Yep.
I'm assuming you still had the visual advantage. So
Yep.
was that the strategy going in there, just get the visuals?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we you could definitely glass there and see a long ways, and the property we on had a river that went through it, or whatever. It was a really large creek is what it was. But then there was, if you can imagine, there was 2 wood lots that were fairly good size, and then out there cattle pasture all around them. And then the property we were on had a CRP program around the woods. So it was just really good habitat. And there was a fence row between the 2 woods.
Connecting them too.
Yeah.
So like,
Oh,
okay.
Oh yeah, dude, and it was the perfect rut bench. We would see, $8 a day come through there.
That's cool. Wow.
Yeah. So it was good. The problem is we had 2 guys. It wasn't a problem at all. It was, but we stayed out of the pinch for each other because like it was cutting each other off a little bit. So I hunted one side of the big woods is big.
I see.
It was they're whatever 10-acre woods, not giant. But then he was hunting the other one. But he killed a really nice 140 10-pointer like day 2 over on his side, and then I kind of stayed where I was for a while, and then finally I went to that pinch, and it was like I shot like a 115 120. It was my last hunt of the day of the trip, but I passed up several deer that were bigger than that throughout the thing, and it was throughout the hunt. It was awesome. But I'm from Indiana, southern Indiana, where you can't see very far because we're in the hills, and the deer numbers are low. So I'm like, dude, I don't see. I may not see six bucks in, a whole season almost.
Yeah.
So it was cool for me.
Yeah. So Kansas the favorite, Kentucky's the worst.
Yeah, I guess so. But I haven't hunted Iowa yet, so we'll see. It may be my favorite.
So you're able to draw Iowa.
Yeah, I have 7.
2024.
I have 7 points, so I should.
Oh my gosh,
Mr. Point Creek
Yeah,
over here.
Yeah. Well, I put in when I had 5 and I didn't get it, and then this year I had a baby in October, so I didn't put in. I just got a preference. That's why I
So
have.
you bought the point.
Yeah, I have a lot of points now because I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put all my eggs in that Iowa basket and then have something happen to the baby, and then I would waste all that because I can't go hunting.
Right. So for sure, 2024. What are you doing now to prepare for that trip?
So, in Indiana, I'm scouting. Had a bunch of like soaker, regular SD card cameras. I'm collecting and, organizing all that crap because I'm horrible about organizing trail camera data. And then Iowa, I'm working on getting some private to hunt, and then I'll probably go out there turkey hunting or something this spring. And I don't have to turkey hunt. Like, it's not a big deal, but I'll be going out there this spring to put cameras out and go from there then.
What is the expectation of that hunt? Because everybody holds Iowa up on the pedestal.
Yeah.
And we talked about all these out-of-state trips, killing Pope and young deer, killing 110-inch bucks. Like,
Yeah.
does it change for you in Iowa?
I mean, I like to think it will, but I don't know. I'll see when I get out there and see what if I get anything good on camera, and go from there. I mean, I don't really want to shoot a 120 in Iowa, but yeah, I mean, I have high expectations for it for sure. And if I can get on, like I have a friend that lives out there that's not a deer hunter who's a farmer, and he's going to let me go on his property. I'm pretty sure. So it'll just depend on how that property looks.
Right.
He's a farmer. He has, I don't know, 600 or 800 acres.
Yeah.
Now, not all of it's like prime deer hunting land, but some of it is. I went out there a few years back in the spring when I thought I was going to draw, and I didn't. But
Was that when you were at the Iowa deer? We were probably there. I feel like you were out there
yeah,
for
that was
trip.
it. Yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been out there. I just got to reconnect with him, make sure it's still good this year.
Yeah.
If not, then I'm going to be, public land stuff.
How much would your hunting change if they just pulled the rug on cameras across the country? Because you mentioned cameras a good amount.
Yeah, I'd have a little more money at the end of the month.
End of the year.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I asked Andy one time about if he had to give up glass or trail cameras, which one would he give up? And he had to sit there and think about it for a minute. So I think I would just start using binoculars a lot more.
Well, I'll ask you the same question. If you had to
Right
give one
now,
up.
it would be glass. I'd
Really?
have to give up binoculars. But
Is that because
Where you're at too.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, if I was hunting in Nebraska or something, maybe it would be different.
Glass would be more effective
Yeah.
if you had the time.
Right.
Well, you guys know this is, man, some people, I mean, it's good for you guys, but man, some people, those trail cameras, it's like you almost get like a social media type, what do they call that?
Dopamine
trip,
thing from it. And then you almost, and I'm as guilty as anybody on that, but yeah, I don't know how much it would change. I'd be less sure of myself sometimes. I think of there's a big deer here, because we all rely on those cameras to tell us what's there, and you just have to get over that fact that, hey, it's going to be a surprise sometimes.
Yeah, good or bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What about all the legislation and different policies and stuff happening like across the state, especially for non-resident guys traveling as much?
Yeah.
Like, what's your? Are you?
Indiana sent out a thing the other day about asking us if we think cell cameras are a problem on public land.
Yeah. What's your perspective? I mean, because you've been to a bunch of different states. You're doing the public thing.
I mean, it's weird to me that, I mean, there is a lot of, the problem is like, man, like Rendell was telling me that he was at Walmart and they had a cell camera for $30. So the technology is getting cheaper and this and that. Yeah. And, I think for me, it's a weird thing that like one of those deals where I'm I don't know, the thing in me where it's like, why is the government telling me what I can and can't do on some of this stuff? But like, and then you go up to Wisconsin, and there are a lot of trail cameras around.
Yeah.
But then talking to some guys, and I don't know how I feel about it yet, to be honest with you, because like, there's the argument of it makes you a more selective hunter, and maybe it puts less pressure on the land because they know like, oh, there's that if they didn't know when that 150 was there, they would just go and hunt it all the time, whereas now they know, like, or they think they know,
Right.
that there's no deer in front of my camera right now. I'm not hunting. So there's that perspective, but then there's also the perspective of now, the not spot stealing, but claiming a spot with a trail camera. There's that perspective, and it's like all, they're all good points, and that's why I think about it a lot about the cell camera thing, and I don't know, man. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I've voiced this on here before, but I think there's a lot of other things that could be fixed that would have a greater impact for these states than trail cameras or cell cameras.
What?
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of easier things.
You guys obviously probably think about this a lot, or I mean, what's the main issue that you hear? Because I listened to the Kentucky thing that you guys put out too.
It is spot claiming. I think is
that's
like
the
number
biggest
one.
theme.
Like,
Yeah,
It does
And
seem like that.
it seems like the state agencies or wildlife councils, natural resource departments of natural resources, they are trying to not have hunter conflict. Is what it seems like to me, and that's where I do have a problem with some of the. I'm going to call it an agenda, because to me, like, it's a tool, and it's not the one creating a conflict. It's not claiming a spot. Like, that's where I just don't understand. It's like blaming, it's a me problem, right?
Yeah.
When guys are jealous, I'm going to say it, like, guys get jealous when other guys kill big deer and other guys aren't killing big deer. And then they say, well, you have 10 cell cameras, and that's why you're killing, well, no, it's not the camera killing a deer. Like, and that's the other complaint I think people have is like the ethics side of things, right? Like, people say, well, you're getting a picture of that deer in 30 seconds, like, and you're walking in there and killing them. Like, how often is that really happening?
Yeah, it never happened to me, but
90% of guys, I'm going to say that doesn't happen to. They're using them because it's giving them time back. Like, it's more, and I get the efficiency argument. There's guys out there that have the efficiency argument.
Yeah.
But that's, like, if you want to talk about measurements or magnitudes of efficiency, like, it's online mapping.
Yeah.
Like, it like.
Yeah, sure. That's the big thing.
So I understand some of the arguments, but I agree with Jake. Like, there's lower fruit to be had there in some of it. And again, like, people are probably thinking, well, you make and sell cameras. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. Like, that's how I feed my family. That's how we make a living.
Yeah.
I understand that. But I'm open to have the debate and, like, open to hear everyone's perspective on it. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right, but that's my opinion on kind of what is happening. And unfortunately, as Jake has kind of swayed me, like, I've never been a policy guy, but I've thought about that conversation we had in the office a month or 2 months ago, like, when we got kind of heated, and you're like, you got to fight with policy. I'm like, policy is bullshit. Well, I did get heated.
That was cool.
Because, like, it's the government thing. Like, to your point, like, I don't want the government telling me, I don't want them overstepping any more boundaries than they've already overstepped, because they control everything that we do. Like, I don't care what anybody says. But the reality of it is, the only way to fight it is to stand up through policy. And, like, who here in this industry does that?
Yeah.
Nobody does it. And that's why we're fighting. I feel like we're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah. No, those are all really good points. Like I said, I understand both sides of it, and I mean, I hope they don't go away. I like using them, and with me, I don't have time to, it's a time saver for me for sure. And, like, if guys have a problem with the real time data, just set them, not put them real time. That's what I'm like the thing. Like, it saves you time if you have an ethical issue with getting real time data, just, like, send them at midnight every day or something,
Well, here's the thing that I don't understand, and I think that the verbiage around what people talk about is not consistent, because, like, a lot of people talk about, Cameron and I have talked about this in the office, but a lot of folks talk about doing the ethical thing is the cleanest, fastest way to harvest the animal.
Yeah.
Like, when people talk about ethics. And if that's the case, like, it's rifles, it's crossbows, it's all the things that people don't like, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of contradictions in the
right.
Yeah.
So is it an ethics thing, or is it a sportsman thing? Like, where it's taking away from the woodsmanship and the ability to read sign and, like, but you go back 100 years, and guys are wanting to use every technological advancement that they have.
Yeah,
like, they want to make
human evolution.
Right. They want to make things easier. So it's like, were the good old days really good?
I don't know. You'd have to go back and ask them.
That's where, it's a really complicated ecosystem that we do not do a good job of kind of navigating at all, including me.
Yeah, and I get if you're in Wisconsin on public land, and all these spots that you've hunted in the past now have a $30 cell camera that someone bought at Walmart, and they got a big ugly lock on it and stuff, and like I understand like that's annoying, but like maybe we just got to get over it. It's like it's just a thing sitting there, like
I
it's
think
going to be there.
The root of it is people just want. I mean, to say it really frank, is they just want big deer to hunt. If there was plentiful big deer, I think everyone would be happy.
I don't know. Everybody finds something. I mean,
you guys.
There's always something to complain about.
And it's easy to hide behind a keyboard and say this, that. But I think in reality, that's what it is. And like people are making the argument that it's too easy with the combination of multiple tools. And then they see the age class drop, and then they get frustrated. I think that's the root of most frustration is if it is worse than what it was before, it makes people mad.
Aren't those tools making us, as Josh pointed out, more selective? So it's like I keep going back to the tool thing.
Some people, but I think you can look at different data that would say otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the NDA just put that report out, and I know there's mixed feelings about how that statistical information was gathered, how it was harvested, how it was presented, but we're in a place where supposedly we've killed across a lot of different states. The average age of a harvested buck is increasing, right?
Yeah.
So like that's kind of what everybody wants, but then at the same point, people are bitching about the same thing. Like there's not enough big bucks. There's only thing to run around is.
Do you think it's because there's less serious hunters now, like less gun hunters, and gun hunters numbers going down, and
they transition into
more bow hunters,
crossbow?
Yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, I wonder if that's the reason. I mean,
well,
I don't know.
Here's the other thing. Like honestly, deer hunters are exceptionally whiny.
Oh my gosh,
that's the reality of it. Like we could just have, there could be enough booner for everyone to shoot, and then it'd be like, well, I didn't shoot a 200.
Yeah.
Like we as a group are really whiny, and I think we all need to be thankful and realize how lucky we are to even have a resource to be able to go out and hunt.
Yeah.
And have public lands to hunt.
Yeah, because we are the only place it's like this. Like, I used to work with people that lived in Europe and China and the Philippines, and like this is taboo, like what we're doing right now. Like they can't even comprehend what end.
I can't comprehend. I don't know. I don't. Yeah. Like I hear people say that, and I can't even picture that in my head.
Yeah.
Like you're telling me you can't go do this or do that.
Yeah.
And
So do you think that it goes away in 100 years? What's your opinion? Like,
I could see it going away. Yeah. I don't know if I think it does, but I could. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes away in 50 years.
Whoa. So you.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I hope it doesn't, but I could see it. I could kind of slowly. I mean, we're starting with you can't put cameras out now. You can't, I don't know, whatever, name it. You can't use a certain type of rifle, and now you can't do this, can't do that. And all of a sudden, it's you can't do anything, or something crazy. I mean, think about this. Like we can't do this on public land that we own as taxpayers. Okay, so where does that transition to? Okay, now we can't hunt anymore because something stupid happened. A deer hunter shot someone's pet dog if they're walking or something. I don't know. I mean, it could happen. What do you guys think? You think it's gonna?
Well, I just look from like the Western perspective is still new to me.
Yeah.
And playing the different, it's a system.
Yeah.
Through the different states, like they all each have their own kind of system established, whether it's like Colorado's moving away from over-the-counter tags. Mm-hmm. So they have a specific point system. And then you go to Montana, and they have a preference point system, and they have a bonus point system. And then you go to Idaho, and it's a random. You look at a place like New Mexico, where it's relatively complete. Like everyone has a chance because it is completely random. But if you want to go hunt like on a guaranteed tag, you better have some money to spend.
Yeah.
And I look at that creeping over, and I correlate that to trail cameras because
that's what happened there first.
That's exactly. So you had these movements out west that kind of set the precedence of what, like kind of foreshadowing what could happen east of the Mississippi. Yeah. And I was like, it'll never happen east of the Mississippi. We're too strong. Like deer hunting culture is too strong in the east and through the Midwest and in the east for it to creep over. And here we are 4 years later.
Almost all of them. Like Wisconsin's, I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard Wisconsin.
They're talking about it. Yeah, they're talking about
Indiana,
it.
Indiana, not to bash Indiana's DNR because I think we do a decent job. But
it's gotten a lot better from the data over the years.
Yeah.
Since they won $1.
But like these surveys come out and nothing ever changes. But you know, they questioned it this year. You know, Kentucky. I mean, I don't know. You're right. It's weird.
I see it happening. Like
Whatever happens out west always ends up leaching over to the east.
Yeah.
On everything, consumer
Honey.
behaver.
Yeah.
Point system.
Products.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah. You're probably right. There's probably more of a chance of it getting of most hunters getting priced out of hunting than it actually going away. Like, I mean, you can hunt in Europe, but you got to have a lot of money, you know.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I see it happening probably in places like where the big deer are, right?
I mean, Iowa's kind of already like
It
that.
already is.
Well, yeah.
You got, you know,
Yeah.
5, 6, years to draw
Iowa,
a
you have
tag.
Kansas.
Yeah, or something stupid happens like Iowa gets like Illinois had the overcrowding of outfitting, and then they had EHD, and all of a sudden Iowa, or I'm sorry, did I say Iowa? I mean Illinois.
Yeah.
You know, they had the Pike County craze in the 90s and early 2000s, and that kind of all went away for a lot of circumstances. And maybe that'll happen to Iowa again, and all of a sudden, like, I don't know, Nebraska or something will
The
be.
great whitetail reset.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know.
So if you had, Jake asked this question to me, I don't know, it was like a month or so ago. If you have every deer hunter's attention in the world right now for 5 minutes, like what would you tell them? If this is a concern for you, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, and that's an easy one. Like, worry about yourself and do what makes you happy. Like, man, if people would just take that advice, things would go so much smoother, you know? That's what I would say. Like, we talked about it last night on the show. Joe gets very frustrated at young people that are trophy hunters, and you know, he'll have a kid that's 16 in South Carolina send him a picture of a 115-inch deer and be like, "You think I should shoot this?" You know, and he's like, "Where's it at? I'll go shoot it." Like, you know, like that we have this culture right now of everybody compares themselves to everybody else, and they base their happiness on what other people think of them, and it's like, man, quit doing that, hunters. Like comparison is the thief of happiness, and if you keep doing that, you're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because there's always a Josh Bomar or a Mark Jury that's going to shoot a 200-inch deer this year, and it, you know, the playing field is not level, so quit comparing yourself to them.
I think it's always happened that way, but now it's easier to compare than ever. Before it was
Oh,
like you go to the
yeah.
archery shop and you look at the pictures like, oh man, and so you're only comparing to that localized area.
Yeah.
And then for a guy in South
Yeah.
Carolina, and he's like, gosh, you know.
Yeah, and if it makes you happy passing a deer, and only shooting booners, like, be okay with not shooting one. You know, it's fine. Nobody cares. You know,
You could say that a couple more times because
Yeah.
that's the reality. People do think it, but it's not.
Yeah. There's old Barry over there. You guys may want to wrap me up.
Well, Josh,
Yeah, we're closing in on 9.
really appreciate you hopping on here this morning, and I enjoy your podcast. I enjoy what you do with your YouTube channel. I like the videos that you do, and I think what you're doing is great. Go ahead and share your socials and your channels and
Yeah.
your upload schedule.
Yeah, so I'm being more active on Instagram, which I've done a very poor job of the last couple of years. But Instagram, I'm really growing on Instagram, and then go over to Before the Echo on YouTube. That's where you'll find most of my my content, and the good stuff's over there. So, yep, that's it.
Well, thanks for the time, man. We appreciate you.
No, thanks, guys, as always.